all my Sagittarius friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today with your March 2025 monthly horoscope. This horoscope is based on whole sign Western astrology. So when I'm talking about Sagittarius, I'm referring to Sagittarius rising as the first house and dictating the landscape of the chart. If you're a Sagittarius sun or moon, this video is also applicable to you, but the house structure will not be the same. When I refer to a day and a time, it's based on the Pacific time zone, so please adjust for your location. March is the beginning of eclipse season. We are going to see Neptune move into Aries for the first time in 65 years. We are going to see Mercury and Venus retrograding in Pisces from Aries into Pisces. And we're going to see a majority of the planets in that area of your chart. This is so significant. I did do a separate video on the Venus and Mercury retrograde. I did them together because they are traveling together. And I will be doing separate videos on the eclipses, but we're going to touch on them in this video for you, Sagittarius. So let's pull up the chart. All right, so here we see it is the 1st of March, and we can see this huge configuration in your fourth and fifth house, I should say. So the Sun, Saturn, Mercury, and Neptune are all in your 4th house, and the North Node will be traveling through this house for the next year and a half. We see right now on the time of this, the 12 o'clock on the 1st, the moon is in Aries, and Venus is stationed to move retrograde. Venus is technically considered in detriment in Aries, and yet in these modern times, I'm not so sure I agree with that assessment. We see the feminine being represented as a receptive energy, as a passionate energy, as a brave co-creator when we see Venus here in Aries. Yes, there's the potential for heat, anger, resentment, and frustration, but Aries energy has been going through its own transformation as Mars has been spending quite a bit of time the last couple of years in Gemini and Cancer, really kind of revisiting all thought and speech and how our emotional body and our intuitive body works with that. So here we see this Venus stationing is really only making one aspect, and that's to Jupiter. And this is a favorable dynamic for really opening up the belief system. As Venus stations for you in your 5th house of romance, of entertainment, of the conception of children, how I see the chart is that the first 5 houses really depict the experiences of youth through, let's say high school, end of high school. And as we go into the 6th house, we're taking how we've been shaped and formed and what we've learned about our interests and our talents and our skills, and we move that into the 6th house. So here, for Sagittarius, there's a lot of passion. There's a lot of pioneering spirit, which is natural to you because you rule foreign travel, foreign places. You rule the broadening of the belief system. And here, Venus is in a favorable aspect with your ruling planet. And we see your ruling planet is in the sign of partnership. So there could be a big focus on relationships for you as this retrograde starts. On the 2nd, Venus will go into her retrograde. I'm going to move to the 3rd, where we see Mercury enter Aries. And I think that this is important because this is the world axis, the beginning, the most powerful co-creative dynamic and degree of the Zodiac. And here it's in your 5th house. And Mercury's having thoughts of what brings passion. Mercury is having thoughts about how it wants to apply, its skills in its everyday life. So when I talk about skills, I'm not just talking about the mercurial type of process and of analyzation, but starting to utilize your Venusian skills, your gifts and your talents as they relate to potentially making money. That's where I'm going with this. Let me move now. What I want to say about this, I'm sorry, I stuttered for a second. Mercury and Venus, Mercury's going to head direct and Venus is going backwards. So they're going to have conversations sort of on some level. While Mercury's moving forward, it's going to want to skip over something. It's like, okay, I've got that piece of information. Let's move on. And Venus is going to come back being like, no, I don't think we've looked at this long enough. And as Mercury retrogrades, it starts to say, oh, I get it. I get it. How will we be brave? How will we implement our entrepreneurship? Will I also, there could very well be for Sagittarius is the revisiting of female energies in your life, maybe even from your childhood. There could potentially be, even sibling activity going on here. On the 11th, we're going to see this exact conjunction between Mercury and Venus. I'm sorry, Mercury and Venus. Venus retrograde, Mercury moving direct. Mercury is now stationing because Mercury on the 15th, on the 15th, Mercury is going to go retrograde. And both of these planets are going to move back into Pisces. And I think this will be revisiting a lot of how you felt nurtured, how you felt honored. Did you feel visible within your family dynamic? Did it support your creativity? Did it support your connection to the divine? During this period of time, we're about to go into our first eclipse on the 13th, and we see that the Sun and Saturn are in an exact, or not in an exact, they're in a conjunction, will be exact the next day, and then the Sun will be at 23 degrees when we have this eclipse, this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. And I think this is going to illuminate for you any restrictions, any authority, any obligations, any duties, any feelings of, Saturn in its most challenging energy can be in Pisces, can ignore emotions, ignore intuition, could be so invested in providing material, earthly, visible security in this. And I say that specifically in this house. So now what Saturn's been doing is wanting to create that security by having a very strong connection to the divinity of your soul and the soul that lives within the physical experience. And here, Saturn is not just asking you to, to apply daily practices of connecting with your spirit, with your soul, with not with those guides and angels, although that's part of it, but the part of yourself that is from God's light. And Saturn here is really wanting to know that you have an intention for that you're not just, it's not just part of your daily routine to fly into your meditation, sit there for 15 minutes, and then fly out. I feel like it's more with some sort of literally like going in there, and whether it's 5 minutes or 50 minutes or 5 hours, there's an intention for your connection with spirit. And I think that's even further evidenced by some of the most important points of the Shapley attractor in your first house. The great attractor at 14 degrees of Sagittarius and the galactic center at 27 degrees. Both are these points in the universe offer, extra influence and opportunity to connect and to extract and to manifest. And when I say extract, I mean extract the gifts from the universe. So this is really powerful. Let's quickly go to the 13th. This first eclipse is at 11:54 p.m. Sorry, oops. And we see that Saturn is conjunct the Sun. So as the Sun reflects its light on the moon in the fullest phase of the moon, I think we're going to be revisiting a lot of history here. First of all, we're looking at a full moon in Virgo. opposing the Pisces energy. Pisces rules history, the ancestral history, your soul's history. Saturn rules the history of mankind. Saturn ruled the golden age and gave us tools to master the earth plane. And in doing so, there was also certain rules that became more entrenched in restriction and limitation. And that's going to become very powerful for you right now. We're looking at this full moon is in your 10th house, your 10th house of career, of status, of public image, but it's also a house where there's a status change. With the South Node here, conjunct the moon, I really feel like there's the potential that there's an epiphany that shifts Sagittarius in a way that incorporates an old potential habit. It could be an old habit that has more to do with process or being more focused on how the audience or the client or the customers respond. Or it could be even something where you start to realize that as you infuse more of your personal story into your career, it becomes a healing and balancing tool. I don't know why I wanted to say that, but that's the way that it came out. Again, I'm going to do a more detailed video, but I think that the key aspects for this is this family history, sort of restriction, potentially of feeling limited or feeling a bit invisible to a higher authority. And am I honoring my own emotional body in a way that, releases the shackles of what is expected of me? The Virgonian energy is the energy of the servant, and Saturn is the energy of duty and responsibility and obligation. All right, let's go back to 12 p.m. And we're going to move to the 15th when Mercury goes retrograde at 9 degrees of Aries. So here now both planets are moving in conjunction as they round up the Aries energy. And again, I think this is going to bring up potential issues that have to do with the female energy. Has to do with potentially childhood as represented by Mercury. It could have things to do with potential with making money and revisiting some teammates, relationships, the communities with which you are putting your talents and skills and your service into. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover about that point. Now let's move over. We'll see the sun become conjunct Neptune at 29 degrees on the 19th, and then the sun will enter Aries. When we go on to the 22nd, we see the sun come into a conjunction with Venus. And Venus and Mercury have no moons. Scientifically, we don't see any moons in these two planets. And I think this is interesting because as the sun, has crossed over the world axis and really sort of became aware of what it creates through the ego. Am I using my talents and my skills? I think that Venus in her retrograde is sort of ravenous for this independent acknowledgement while also feeling supported by others. I want to offer it that way. When we look at the Piscean energy, it's very creative. And while the creativity is done usually in sort of an isolated energy or by myself, it also is here to help mankind through emotions and through empathy and through relatability. So as the sun moves into your 5th house and Venus is moving backwards into her exaltation, I feel like you might be thinking a lot about how your home life either supported or, eroded your sense of value and your skills. And I think that this is an opportunity to sort of start a new story, to take the old story, even if it was challenging, and use it as the legs to help you walk forward. We're going to see a similar conjunction with Mercury. Again, Mercury has no moons. We're going to see this on the 24th. So technically, the sun combusts both these planets as it becomes in conjunction. And yet, to me, this is an illumination of the ego. Where am I edging God out, and where am I excited about God's opportunities? There's two ways to look at it. The ego is a divine part of the human experience, but inadvertently, it's become sort of the fall guy for wanting to experience our greatness. Most of humanity wants us to experience our service to them rather than our own greatness. So I think that's where it's gotten a little muddied. We also see that Venus right now is back conjunction on that world axis, and she's going to be in no short order in her domicile. I'm sorry, in her exaltation. And that happens on the 27th. And this is really, here she is conjunct Neptune again. This will not happen for 164, 65 years again. So this, meaning Neptune and the North Node and Venus cannot be in this configuration again for about 165 years. So this is a real strong soul's opportunity to step beyond that which has been assigned to me, the role I've been given, the feelings of invisibility, and to really step into my creativity, as that is the true voice of God, the true voice of spirit. When I'm intuiting things and I see musical notes ascending to heaven, those are prayers. So we associate Pisces with music, with lyrics, with dreaming, with fantasy, with illusion, and in some ways escapism. So if for some reason you came from a challenging dynamic where the Piscean lower energies were dominating the home environment, this is an opportunity to reconcile that and potentially create something beautiful as a result of it. And then that becomes wisdom. We will see a new moon, partial solar eclipse on the 29th. And this is at 3:58 a.m. Now, this is where the sun and the moon come together in the darkest phase of the moon to create something in faith. And I don't like to use the word hope because hope feels like it's outside of myself and I have no power, where faith anchors me into something where I feel I have great power. We see Mercury is now retrograded at the 0 degree of Aries. Again, thoughts, what do I want to create? Where do I want to go? How do I want to assert my talents, my skills, how do I want to be in my romances? Do I want to revisit old dynamics within my romances because I have inadvertently not experienced something at a higher vibration? I think this is going to be important for depending upon the chapter. There's so much about the chapter of life, because when we're young, the romance will be very important. When we're sort of at that age of creating families, this could be the focus. When we're at the age of creating ourselves, the career could be the focus. So, you'll have to determine that by your personal chart. But I think as we see, Neptune is at 29, Venus is now at 28, North Node's at 27. There's something happening synchronistically if we're willing to slow down and really think from our heart, not what we think is capable or what we think is possible through our five senses, but to almost stretch for what we think is the impossible. And when I think about the word impossible, it breaks down to I'm possible. So that's what I think is the key thing about this particular eclipse. And I think it's super important because, again, it's focused on the self. It's at that 9th degree, which is the Sagittarian degree of moving into new dynamics. The Sagittarian degree rules the legal, branches of government. It rules, I think it rules, House of Representatives and Congress. It rules the judicial system. It rules religion and, large organizations. It also rules entrepreneurship and marketing and branding and another form of writing, where it's published. So you could find a lot of your fourth house energies growing up could be channeled into very amazing fifth house dynamics, regardless of whatever the genre is. Because again, it's something about sharing your personal experiences. Okay, now on the 30th, this is another big day. This is a big day because we've got Mercury re-entering Pisces as Neptune has now, oh, let me go later in the day. Whoops, 12 p.m. is the standard time I like to use. And now we see that Neptune is at 0 degrees of Aries. Neptune will go up to about 2 degrees of Aries and then retrograde back into Pisces, visiting that last degree again for a wee bit before settling back into the Aries energy. Saturn is going to catch up with Neptune in a short bit. And I think this is important because the retrograde of Mercury and Venus is very much teeing up how you're going to process the Saturn-Neptune conjunction as it sits on the cusp of your 4th and 5th house. When Saturn and Neptune come together, there's going to be an opportunity to build upon something that in the past has historically been erosive. This is the time when you've built your ship in the form of Saturn to ride the spiritual seas of the peaceful warrior. And here the peaceful warrior is willing to be the hero in their own story. And that's the 5th house here of Aries. So I think this is a super, super powerful month. We are going to feel literally like time speed up. The outer planets this year will all move from either earth and water into air or fire. And it's going to create this acceleration. Air stokes the fire. So, and we're going to see so much more invention, especially because of Pluto Gemini changes. I'm sorry, Pluto and Uranus changes. Pluto moving into Aquarius, Uranus moving into Gemini. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. So it's going to be a big month. And this month is, again, teeing up how we're going to experience the subsequent months in 2025, which are pivotal for the next decade. All right, everybody, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Please join me Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time, where I do tarot card readings based on your specific personal questions. This is kind of where you get to come into the chat, write your question, and we take them in order. If you donate a super chat or super thanks, you kind of move up in the line. And then you can join me live on Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. where we look at the astrological transits for the week ahead in a little bit more detail. And again, do another spread to see what Spirit has to say about the week ahead. Please like, please subscribe, please share, and I'll see you soon. Have a lovely March, Sagittarius. Bye-bye.